Okay. Hello, hello, hello. My name is LaShawn, and we are getting ready to go live to sew McCall's 83. Oh, what is it? It is, what are we sewing? 8361 or 8362, depending on your size. So I'm excited to sew this spring and or summer dress. I have done a muslin already, which I'll talk to you about because it's a little bit different, but I covered a lot of the skills. Hey everybody, hi Cabela. K-Bella, thank you for joining. Life of the Experience, thank you for joining. Thank you everyone for joining. So we are going to be getting started fairly soon. I just want to cover a couple of housekeeping. If you are joining from Instagram allows me to go live for 60 minutes at a time. This will definitely take a couple minutes to go through all the steps of sewing 8361, McCall's 8361. So when I disconnect from Instagram, I will be getting back on Instagram. So just know if you get disconnected, you'll need to log back on. Or I am also live streaming from YouTube and from Facebook. Let's Get Social Facebook page and Let's Get Social YouTube. So you can also join over there where there won't be the same level of disconnect. So you'll stay on continuously. But either way, I will be hopping back on Instagram. Just know that every 60 minutes it will log me off and then I will, jump back on Instagram. So if you are sewing along, definitely drop something in the chat. Hi, Scoosh. Thank you for joining. Happy Friday to everyone. I know it's been a long week. So anyway, I'm grateful that you all are joining, and we are actually going to get ready to get started because we have a lot to cover. So again, if you are sewing along, please let me know in the chat so that as I'm going through the steps, I can check in, with you. And if not, I'm just going to keep on moving through the steps, step by step. If you have any questions, let me know along the way, even if you're not sewing, because maybe you plan to sew later. And if you do want to come back and visit this video, it will be on YouTube, it will be on Facebook, so you'll be able to go to Let's Get Social and sew. So I'll talk a little bit about the muslin and then we'll get started. So one of the things I wanted to do, because this pattern, I would say it is probably not as beginner friendly as many of the other patterns, but it is definitely doable. I would say that it's probably more intermediate than it is beginner because there's a lot of different steps, a lot of skills, including, having to do gathering, having to do a zipper, having to do a hook and eye. So there's a lot of different things that you will have to do in this. And so it does take a little bit longer. There are several locations where you'll be doing understitching. You have some darts to do. So because of that, I would say that it's probably not what I would say is what I would call traditional beginner, a project for a beginner sewist. With that said, if you are a beginner and you've been sewing for a little bit of time and you think you've mastered some of the basics, this is definitely a pattern that is going to allow you to level up your skills. Again, you're going to do darts, you're going to do zippers, you're going to do gathering, you're going to do, inset sleeves, you're going to do deal with interfacing. A lot of the skills that you will need to broaden the types of patterns that you are able to get into and or the quality of the work that you're able to do, because you're able to do some of those things like darts, like gathering, that give you a much more fitted look as opposed to a kind of what I would call universal look. So anyway, here is the muslin that I completed. I did do it in a jean and I used an Ankara fabric, which I did use interfacing on. And this Ankara fabric is actually the fabric that I'm going to be using today to create the entire dress that we're going to be doing today. And so the only thing that I have left to add to this muslin is I will be adding sleeves in this Ankara fabric. However, I literally only had a small amount of Ankara fabric left, so I did not want to use it just in case I, have some type of mess up with the dress that I'm doing today. I wanted to have enough fabric left that I could replace a piece if I needed to. So I was waiting until we were finished. So I did just do a serge around the armholes because I thought about it for a minute about just making it sleeveless. And then I decided, you know, after trying it on that I definitely want to, I wanted to add sleeves, but I will drop some pictures at some point of what it looks like in its current form. And then once I add the sleeves. The other thing that you don't see on this is you do not see there are ties that go along the waist that fit inside of here. And because I use the same fabric as I'm using for the dress, I didn't create two sets of ties. I plan to use the same ties that I'm using for the dress, that when I wear this, I will be using the ties in this. So in terms of the top of this, the bodice is exactly the same type of bodice that we will be creating. Every single step that we are going to go through in the next minute or so, a few minutes, is exactly what I used to create this bodice, from the elastic around the back to the collar to the lapel to the front piece. All of this from like the waist up is exactly the same. I did end up cutting the dress in a size 16 based on the measurements. I do feel like it is a tad too big, but also, again, this jean that I used is stretch. So, and the Ankara fabric has no stretch in it. So I'm going to trust the process. I use my measurements to decide to cut a size 16, and I'll see if I feel like it is too big. The other thing that I did differently, which we won't be going into today, is that instead of pairing this with the skirt, I actually replaced the skirt with a pair of shorts that I cut from a different McCall's pattern. But I followed the same instructions for adding the shorts. So I put I put a gathering in the front of the shorts. There is gathering in the front of the shirt, in front of the skirt. I attached the bodice to the shorts in the same way that we're going to attach the bodice to the skirt. And I also installed the zipper to the back of the shorts in the same way that we're going to be installing a zipper to the back of the skirt, including adding the facing to the inside of the shorts, the top of the shorts, to give it that finished look. I also added something that was different, which we won't be doing in the skirt, is I did add a piece of elastic at the top of the shorts, because again, I cut the shorts in a size large and they probably could have been a size medium. And so again, I don't know if that's because this fabric is stretchy, and it does have a good bit of stretch to it, and the Ankara fabric does not. So again, I'm hoping that the skirt cut in a size 16 is going to fit me perfectly, but if not, then I will have to make some adjustments after the fact. So anyway, I'm relying on what I did with this muslin. Although it's a little bit of a different muslin, I was able to use, again, a lot of the same steps to make the skirt to add the shorts. I just made the shorts separately and then attach them the same way that we'll attach the skirt to the bodice. And so again, I'm going to be using this Ankara fabric. So before we get started, for those that were sewing along, there were a couple of steps that I asked people to do ahead of time, which included creating your ties ahead of time. So you had to create 2 ties, and I asked you to create those ahead of time. I asked you to sew darts. So in the front of the bodice, you have 2 darts, and I asked you to sew those darts. And then I also asked you to interface all of your pieces. And there were quite a few pieces, depending on which view that you're sewing. You could have up to 10 pieces that you did need to interface. And so again, to ensure that we were spending most of the time sewing the pieces together, I did ask everyone to have those interface pieces done ahead of time. In terms of what you will need, or what will be helpful for you, is you will need a zipper foot, because we do have a zipper. So if you don't have a zipper foot, if you do have a zipper foot, it would definitely be helpful. You also, because we have some understitching and we have some a little bit of top stitching, depending on which sleeve that you do, it also helps to have an edge foot. Again, you don't necessarily have to have those, but those are very helpful in helping you go through the process pretty smoothly. And then the only other thing, which I love, you don't actually need this at all, which is a gathering foot, because there is lots of pleating and gathering in this. And so I use the gathering foot to do all of the pleating, including that in the sleeves. in the front of the bodice, as well as the skirt, you have gathering. But you can do that a different way, and I'll talk through that. Even though I'm going to be using the gathering foot, I'll talk about how the instructions tell you to go through that piece. So with that said, we are actually going to get started. So again, thank you all for joining. I'll just give one more reminder that if you are joining through Instagram, every 60 minutes, we will get logged out by Instagram, and so I will log back in. And so again, if you're following along, just log back in, or you do have the option to be able to join through Let's Get Social YouTube page or Facebook page. Those are two other options that you have. So with that, I am going to be going through the instructions step by step. So again, if you're following along, you will be able to know what step we're on. And if you have questions hey, Julian, thanks for joining. If you do have questions, you're watching this after the fact, then you can drop those questions in the comment section of either YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, and I will respond to those questions about the process. Tell me, In My Zone Crafting, what's your name again? Thank you for joining, and hello, happy Friday. All right, so we're starting with step 1, and we're actually going to be skipping to number 3, which is gathering of the lower edge of the bodice, because step one of the bodice is basically having to interface all the pieces. Hi, Mika. Oh, Mika, it's you, Mika. Hi, Mika. I'm sorry, I don't remember everyone's name. But thank you for joining. So step 1 was to interface all the pieces, which included piece number 1, which is the front of the bodice. And step 2 was to put the dart in the front, which we should have already done those pieces. So then that gets us to step 3, which is to put a gathering piece or gather the lower portion. So when you transferred all your markings, you would have 2 dots. And I just did the gathering to this piece as well. So I'm just going to talk you through the way that it is telling you to gather in the instructions. But there are 2 dots, and basically what you would be doing is you would be stitching a basting stitch along in between those two dots. You would stitch 2 rows, and then you would pull those rows. Is it 2? Are they saying 2? Yes, they are saying 2. You would basically pull those in order to create a gather and move the fabric along, so you would create a gather. Or what the alternative is that you could use a gathering foot, which I use, and I also pressed it, which is why it's probably hard to tell with this colorful fabric that there are gathers there, but I pressed those gathers after I was finished. And so that is step 3, is to create the gathering to the front of the bodice. So again, I've already done that. And once you finish putting the gathering in the front of the bodice, you're going to put that piece number 1 aside momentarily, and you're going to pull out your piece number 2. And again, if you are sewing along, please let me know, because I will go a little bit slower for the parts. I did do some prepping ahead of time, just because there are so many steps to this process, and I wanted to make sure that we are able to get through it in a reasonable amount of time. And so again, after you finish your putting your gathers in between those 2 dots, then you're going to pull out your piece number 2, which is your back bodice. And in the back bodice, we are going to be creating a casing, because we're going to be putting a piece of elastic in. So it's going to be just like this. You probably can't see it that well, but there is a piece of elastic there because there's some gathering there. And so you are then going to turn this where your wrong side is facing up. And we are going to be using our iron quite a bit on this as well. So have your iron ready to go. And you are going to turn up almost an inch, so 7/8. You're going to turn it up 7/8. So wrong side up, you're going to turn up 7/8, and then you're going to press it, and then you're going to turn under 1/4 and press that as well. So I'm going to work on doing that right now. Hey, Tadri, how was your birthday? Did you celebrate with all the money that you got? Did you celebrate? All right. So I cannot find my little ruler that I have. Oh, here it is. So I use this little ruler to determine, like, you know, what's an inch. What I'm finding is I'm getting better and better at figuring it out without the ruler, but so I usually put it there, iron a little piece, and then follow suit the rest of the way. I also do have a ruler that you can iron on. I just don't have it out right now. So again, you said you're using it for your trip. I know that's right. Where you going? Can you share? Where are you going, and are you sewing your own clothes to go on this trip? That's the two things I want to know. I know that's right. So this is Ankara fabric. And it's beautiful. I think I ordered this fabric when I first started sewing. So I've had it probably like 10 months. And when I saw the picture online, I'm gonna be honest with you, I saw the picture online and it looked it didn't look this bold to me. For those people that know me, you know I'm not like a whole colorful person. I like black is my favorite, and then, you know, solid neutrals are probably my second favorite. So this was not that. And so when it came, I was like, "Ooh, this is bright." So I ordered it in a pink. I ordered it in a like a turquoise teal kind of color, and I ordered it in this green. And then I got another kind of Ankara fabric, which was in this blue. It's blue and gold. Well, the colors were way more vibrant than they looked on the computer. And so when I got them, I really didn't like them. I was like, who is wearing that? Who's wearing that? Because I'm not wearing it. But so what I do is, like, I thought because I ordered like 5 yards of each of these fabrics. I still have a ton of all this fabric. Well, except for this one. This is the green one. I was like, I'm not feeling green. So green, I think I only ordered like 2.5 yards, but I ordered 5 of the blue, 5 of the teal, 5 of the pink, except for this one, the one that I could have probably used some extra fabric for. So anyway, I decided, like, I'm going to use this fabric to sew things that I don't really, think I'm going to like, or not my style, or to just try things that I don't want to use my fabric that I really like on. But over time, I kind of have the fabric has grown on me. I do actually like it much more than I thought that I would like it. And I hate to say it, but I feel like since I've been sewing, the colors are really kind of growing on me. I'm not fully converted. Black is still my favorite, and I will sew black every day, Sunday through Monday, or Monday through Sunday. But I don't know, it's growing on me. It is definitely growing on me. So anyway, I'm excited to see what this is going to look like. You say you love the green. Yeah, I'm getting you. It's bright though. I feel like the camera just does not give any justice for how bold this color is. It is, look, trust me, people, you wear this when you want to be seen, because there's no way around it. You will be seen when you have this on. Okay, so once you have folded over and created basically your casing, you are going to do an edge stitch, and then you're going to create your casing. And then the next step is we're going to be putting our elastic in. So you say you're going to Florida, you're trying to get your outfits together in 11 days. Look, I'm traveling in July, and I created a plan. I already know exactly what I'm making all my clothes. I'm not buying anything to wear, which this will be a first, including my clothes that I'm going to be wearing, like doing, excursions and stuff like that. So everything is not going to be like cute and, comfortable. Some things are going to be like, I need to make some like functional stuff so that I'm not out there, having any kind of, malfunctions with my clothing while I'm, swinging through the jungle. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, when you wear it, you're going to be seen. That's exactly what's going to happen when I wear this. I am definitely going to be seen. No doubt about it. So with that, you got to make sure it looks good. And I'm focused on making sure that it looks good. All right. So I am doing my edge stitch, creating this casing, doing my edge stitch. And I do have an edge foot, so that does help me to be able to go through this. Let me tell you, the one thing about this fabric is it's so bold that it often I can't tell the wrong side from the right side. I have to really double check. I've had to mark on it to make sure I know wrong side from the right side. There is a difference, but the good news is that if I do make a mistake, you're really not going to be able to tell unless you're really looking close. But the bad side is that it's easy to make a mistake because they do look so, both sides look so finished. All right, so I've created my casing, and that takes me to the next step, which is you're going to get pattern piece number 3, which is what you're using to measure your elastic. And I'm going to use a safety pin, but you can also use a loop turner. You can also use a loop turner as well. So I'm going to use a safety pin. Oh, here it is. You said you used that card for the first time yesterday. You washed it first. Yes. So you said, and I won't do that again. No, I washed mine. So I have started. So the first 6 months of sewing, I didn't wash nothing. I did not wash anything. And then I started washing it. And now I'm a wash. Now, as soon as I'm, getting ready for my trip. I'm laying out all my fabrics, what I'm sewing. And so when I was in Joann's, I went and bought some fabric, 8 yards of it for something that I'm making. And I washed it, I'm telling you. So what I did do is, so this is what I'll tell you, make sure this is what I learned along the way. I don't know if this will be helpful, but what I learned along the way is make sure you take those stickers off. And what helps to get the stickers off is to take like a washcloth or something like that, dampen it, wet it, and then like wring it out so it's kind of damp but wet. And then put your iron with steam on it and put it over the sticker, and that will kind of loosen it up, and you'll be able to just peel it right off without any leftover, sticky stuff. So that's one thing I'll do. Then the other thing I learned, again, YouTube is your friend here, was my friend, and trying to figure this out, is I cut the edges. So every edge, like if you have a big piece of fabric or small pieces, 4 edges to it. And I basically cut a little triangle out on every edge. And that makes a huge difference. The fabric, it doesn't get tangled up in the wash machine when you wash it. So I don't know what happened, Tydri. Hey, Carmen. I don't know what happened to you, like why you're like, I'll never do that again. But that's what I experienced between the tangling. I don't have any, very minimal shredding is what I've experienced. But those are the 2 things I do. I basically cut those little edges. And then I also just a little teeny triangle off of each edge. And then I also make sure I take the sticker off. One time I forgot to take the sticker off, and that sticker was on all my fabric. I had to rewash. Luckily, I had only put 2 pieces in there, but I had to rewash it again because I didn't take the sticker off. I forgot about the sticker. I just threw it in there and forgot that the sticker was on there. All right. So once you get your elastic through, then you are going to basically spread out your gathering don't know if you can see it, but it's a little gathered. And then you are going to put a stitch in the end of each. You make sure you have a little bit of exposed elastic on the side, and then you are going to create a little stitch in the seam allowance area because you don't want it to be, you want it to be covered up. And I usually just go back and forth a couple of times. All right, one side down, one to go. And I'm just putting my safety pin back in here. You said, I just like the feeling of the fabric washed. I just don't like sewing it washed. It's not thick enough. Oh, okay. I don't know. I feel like, you know, the one thing I haven't started doing is, well, initially when I did it, I used to put a whole bunch of fabric in the wash machine together and it'd be all balled up. Now what I do is I wash like two, depending on how many yards I have, I wash like 2 pieces. And then I will, as soon as it's done in the dryer, I will, I'll fold it so that it doesn't get super wrinkled. Because as you know, Ankara can get really wrinkled. So yeah, that's what I do. And it is worked for me. So like when I did it with this one, and when I had to use it, I just basically had to it took me no time to iron it. All right, so now we are done creating our casing, and we are actually going back to pull back our piece 1, and we're gonna sew piece 1 and 2 together at the shoulder seams. So piece 2 is where we put the elastic in the back. So we are doing right sides together. And so again, this is where it's going to be tricky. I have to make sure I take my time. Oh yeah, okay. And I know which side is the right side and which side is not the right side. And then you're going to take your piece 1 and you are going to line those up at the shoulder seams. And that's what I'm doing right now. Again, I cut a size 16 in this, and normally for cottons or wovens, I'm a size 14, but this is one of those follow the measurements, and this is one of those trust the process moments. Hi, Patty. Thank you for joining. Happy Friday. Let me show y'all what exactly we are sewing. So this is what we're sewing. It is 8361. Let me write that on here. 8361. That's what we're sewing. I'm just going to leave. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll leave that up there for a little bit. So I'm pinning my shoulder seams right now. Pinning my 1 to 2 right sides together. Again, it might be really hard to tell because this fabric is so colorful. Yeah, I'm telling you, so that fabric that I just bought yesterday is I bought the entire bulk of it. So it's so pristine. It's so, you know, it's like, oh my, like it's steamed, but I was like, let me wash it. Let me just go ahead and wash it. Why stop now? I still have a couple of bins of fabric that I need to wash from when I first started buying fabric. But now the first thing I do as soon as I get home, I just throw it in the wash machine. It's just better that way. Then I don't think about it. It's just part of my process. All right, so now so all of the seams, all of the stitching is at 5/8 unless it tells you otherwise. So we are stitching these, the front to the back bodice at 5/8. And I am using a straight stitch, by the way, for everything. Unless, no, I'm using a straight stitch for everything. There's no unless. My fingers are crossed that I'm not going to make no mistakes and sew on the wrong side, but I am very nervous. That's all I'm going to say. I've transferred all my notches. I believe, and all of my markings. So I'm hoping that that's going to help me because, like I said, the front to the back, it looks very similar. All right, here we go. All right, so far so good. So we have finished the well, not finished, but we have finished the major steps of the bodice. So yay. So that's that. You can put this aside. So I'm gonna put my piece 1 and my piece 2 to the side, as well as these pattern pieces. I will move those to the side. And now, just momentarily, and now we are going to, and actually we're going to pull them back out because the next step is you are going to get pattern piece number 4, which is your collar piece. So you will have 2 pieces. One has interfacing and one should not have interfacing. So you will have 2 pieces. Again, one with interfacing and one without. Hello, Sandra. Thanks for joining. Hi, let me see, Mrs. Blanks. Thanks for joining. Is that Mrs.? No, it's not. NRS Blanks. I'm sure you probably get that Mrs. all the time. Sorry about that. All right, so now you're gonna open up. So I know I said put it away, but you're actually not gonna put it away because we're gonna do 2 things. One, we're gonna iron out our seams that we just stitched together when we stitch the front and back, because it'll make it easier when you start attaching your collar and your lapel. So get your iron out. We're going to be ironing those, and then we're going to be pinning our collar. And we're going to be working with the interfaced piece first. So first is first, let us iron those seams. So when I'm sewing by myself, not on, camera, I take my time and I iron everything. But sometimes when I'm sewing on live, I might save ironing to the end, like when I finish the whole garment, unless I really have to do it. And it's just, so that's what you see me kind of skipping that step a little bit, but you really can't for this because there's a lot of places where the seams need to line up, and ironing really does help you do that. All right, so once you iron those seams, then you are going to get out your collar piece, the one that has the interfacing. Again, you have 2, one with interfacing and one without interfacing. And so you are going to then pin the collar right sides together. So right now the wrong side is facing up, but it's going to be right sides together. So I'm going to remember how I did this when I first did it. So I just turned it over. So I have my right side, and then I am putting my right side on here. And you do have markings. You do have notches. You do have markings. So you're going to use those to help you line up your piece. And there we go. And so I'm going to start pinning. And again, I am pinning. And you're going to be pinning kind of around a curve a little bit as well. So it's right sides together. Let me just make sure one more time. Yes. Okay. I get nervous. Right sides together, and you're pinning piece number 4 to your bodice. So you should be looking at the interfacing similar to what you see if you're able to see it on the screen. Oh, let me make sure. Let me see. Oh, actually, you know what? Scratch that. Before we pin it, we have to pin. We have to take the collar and pin pin the collar with the interfacing to the collar piece without the interfacing. So right sides together. So scratch, do not pin the collar to the bodice yet. First, you are going to pin the collar with the interfacing to the collar without the interfacing, and you're going to put right sides together, and then you're going to pin those together, and you are pinning on the side that does not have any notches on it. That's the side that you're pinning, and that's the side that we're going to stitch. So I'm looking for mine now. Okay, so we're pinning, so it's going to be the outer round part. So if you're looking at mine, if you can see this, it's the outer part, rounded part that does not have notches in it. So that is step number 10. That is us pinning the interfaced piece to the non-interfaced piece of the collar, right sides together. Hi, Carol. Hi, Miss Carol. Are you enjoying your new sewing machine? That was my sewing machine, just so you know. I was supposed to win that. Now we just got to get somebody else to have another contest so we could have another sewing machine. Okay, so step number 4, I finished pinning. Right sides are together of the 2 collar pieces. And oh, let me not step off the screen. I'm just taking a look at it, getting to make sure we're pinning collar 4 sections, right sides together, matching the notches, the centers, the dots, and then we're going to stitch the unnotched edge between the dots. So that's the other thing. You should have put dots on your, you should have put dots. Oh, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yes. You should have put dots, unnotched edge. Okay, I just want to make sure I do this right. I'm holding it like it is on the instructions. Yes, so I did. So you should have dots, and I do have them, but you can't really see them. I don't think you can see them, but anyway, you're going to be stitching from here where my finger is. Oh, let me do it this way. Let me hold it back. Where my finger is down, and then across this bottom, and then the same thing on the other side. So I'm about to start stitching it right now. And it helps to have the pictures, because I know you might not be able to fully see because there is no wide view. So I use my wheel to make sure that I go right down into those dots that I cut. And I'm going to start stitching. 5/8 of an inch is what we're doing. Oh, you said Frogtails has a sewing machine giveaway. Okay, that's what's up. Let me find out. Okay. I'm winning that. I don't know how. Hopefully they could ship it home. I am winning that. I need that. I want that, I should say. Oh, you said you didn't get it yet. Okay. Well, I'm sure it's coming soon. I am sure it'll be there soon. Okay, I'm just making sure that my fabric is all lined up. Is anyone going to the South Florida Frogtails? Right, I'm a manifested. I am getting that sewing machine. Let me tell you, I'm on my winning streak. I am on my winning streak. That's why I was surprised when I didn't win that sewing machine. I was like, this, I'm on my winning streak. I've been winning, winning, winning. Doing nothing but winning. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting spoiled. All right. Now, one other thing we need to do, I skipped another step, which we're going to go back to in a minute, which is we need to create a stay stitch around the bodice neck. So we are going to take back out those piece 1 and 2. And that's just to help stabilize it so that it doesn't stretch out of place, so that when you are putting your collar in, at least that's what I believe it is for. So you are going to literally, you should have some dots, and you're literally going to kind of stitch around the U shape. So from about where my fingers are across the bottom and back up on the other side, you are going to do a stay stitch there. Actually, let me start on this side. All right. Sandra, what you miss? Oh, you missed about the machine giveaway. It was a Juki. It was a Juki machine. If you're talking about Black Sewing Network, Black Sewing Network and Auntie Carol from Carol Sewing Corner gave away a Juki machine, and you just had to, in order to enter, it's like a type of like a raffle kind, not a raffle, but drawing. It was a drawing. And what you basically had to do was sew a garment. There was a couple of different garments, 2 women's garments and a men's garment that you had a choice of sewing. And you had to sew a robe. It was a robe and a romper, or a robe and a pant jumpsuit that you had to sew. And yeah. And Carol, Miss Carol won. She won my sewing machine. But she's going to put it to good use, so I'm not mad. I'm going to win this one for Frogtails. Do you know what kind of brand machine it is, Carmen? Oh, you said it was a Janome. Okay, I got it all wrong. I said Juki. Thank you, Miss Carol, for setting me straight. Either way, it was a good machine. It was free and it was good. You said, oh, you need to get more involved. Yes, get more involved. Because you could have won that machine. You missed out on your machine. That was your machine. That was your machine. Miss Sandra, that was your machine. Well, do you know what, hey, Jalen, do you know what the machine that is being given away at Frogtails, and who's going to Frogtails? Anybody going? I saw a lot of, I feel like it's going to be a lot of people there based on the postings that I've been seeing. I'm excited. I can't wait to see people for the first time. Can't wait to see what people make. I'm still trying to, well, finish up. I got my fabric. I just need to figure out which one of the two things that I think I'm wearing. Okay, so I'm just doing my stay stitch around the bodice neck between the dots. I'm almost done. Oh, where's my second dot? I feel like I passed it. I think I did. Oh, yep, it's right there. Okay, so I finished that stay stitch. So that was step 9. Step 10, we stitched the two sides of the collar together. And then we need to do an understitch. So the understitch is we are taking the, on the curved edge, we are basically taking the interfaced, the side that's not interfaced. We are stitching down on the side that is not interfaced. Let me make sure that's what they are doing. Understitch the uninterfaced side of the collar on the curved edge. So it's the side that is not interfaced. So you are basically, let me just turn this. Or actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave it there. Yes. So you're basically creating an understitching on, yes, on this side. So you are stitching down this seam allowance onto the side that is not interfaced, if that makes sense. So the interfaced side, you are stitching down on the side that is not interfaced. And it's going to be a narrow stitch, like right by the edge, as much as you can do it. I did not do it, honestly, for this collar. I did not do that step. But I'm going to do it on this one. I am going to do it on this one, at least for around the curve. Well, it actually says around the curved pieces, which is what I'm going to do, because it's going to be hard to do it on the other side, on the pieces that are straight. So just make sure when you put it under the needle that there's no bunching underneath of it. And this is, again, another place where it's really good to have that edge foot, because you can use that stitch the seam allowance, or the stitch that you created to stitch both pieces together as your guide. Just move that needle over just a little bit and stretch it out. Make sure there's no and I'm only doing it around this curved part. So I'm just doing the understitching. Understitching, it definitely adds to the way it looks. It just gives it a better, more cleaner look, I find. Even though I didn't do it earlier, I know that there's going to be a difference between this collar and this one I did up here, even though that one looks really good too. You said, what fabric am I using for frock tails? I'll show you in a minute. I have to go over there and get it. Okay, so I just completed my understitching. You're not going to be able to see it really well, but it is I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to put it in the camera. And then you are going to turn it on to the right. You're going to turn right sides out. And you do, well, before we turn right sides out, you actually want to clip because it's going to be a lot of extra. So you want to take your scissors and you want to clip off some of that seam allowance. And I'm actually going to be using, because I did not serge the edges. Excuse me. So I'm going to use my pinking shears to cut off. So I'm going to use my pinking shears. So one of the things that we learned, or that I learned, I would say other people probably knew, is that it's probably good to serge when you're dealing with wovens that can fray, serge those edges before. But if you don't, then you can use your pinking shears, which is what I'm doing right now. So Carmen, I'm using I think I've settled on, or what I started with, and which is a black Ponte knit and a red Ponte knit. I think that's what I settled on. In fact, I keep going back to, I switched a couple times, but that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna show it to you in a minute. It's not exciting, but it's gonna be looking exciting when I'm finished. Okay, so I just did that, and I just did my pinking shears, and now I am turning wrong side. You say you're not sure about about the giveaway. Thank you. All right, so I'm turning right sides out, and then I'm going to pull out my iron so that I can press this collar the way it's supposed to be. Just finger pressing it now to get it to where it is supposed to be, and then I'm going to, look at that. That looks so good. I'm going to tell you something. It's nothing like, while I'm waiting for that to heat up, let me get this fabric. Okay. So, what am I doing? So I went back and forth between, I also have a bulk of this fabric, which I have not used. So I went back and forth between this combined with this black Ponte knit. Now this is a cotton fabric. So I went back and forth between these two. And then this is also one that I bought a while ago and never used. Also have a bolt of this, 8 yards. So it's a red, dark red Ponte and the black. Now, I know y'all are probably thinking that is not summer or spring colors. And all I'm gonna say is these are my summer and spring colors. So anyway, I think I've settled on these two. And I'm gonna save this for another time. But don't be surprised if I show up with this African print, because I just might. I don't know. That's why I haven't cut anything yet, because I want to make sure that I know. Thank you. I do also have, which I don't think I'm using it, but I do have another Ankara fabric that I haven't touched yet. It's white and black mix. So this is why I'm having trouble, because I keep looking at all the fabric that I have that I've done nothing with and thinking, oh, I could use that, I could use that, I could use that. But I think I've settled. I think I'm doing the black and the red. I think that's what I'm doing. I started with the black and the red, and that's what I keep going back to. So anyway, collar is pressed, and now we are moving on to number 5, which is our lapels. So for those, again, that are on Instagram, just know that we will get disconnected at about 60 minutes in. So we probably have a good 5 minutes left before we get kicked off. And then I will be logging back on. So just log back on. Again, the other option that you do have is getting on YouTube. Let's Get Social YouTube, or Let's Get Social Facebook. Because they do not have that feature where they log you out after so long. Okay, so here we are. These are the lapel pieces. So like the collar, the lapel pieces are the same in that you had to cut 4 pieces. 2 of them are interfaced and 2 are not interfaced. Make sure that you transferred all your notches. You can't really see mine on here, but I have your notches and your markings. And so what we're going to do for the lapel is we're going to do a similar thing that we did with the collar, which is that right sides together, we are going to pin one of the lapel pieces with the interfacing with one of the lapel pieces without the interfacing. Again, it's right sides together. Where's my other piece? Oh, here we go. So thin. I didn't realize. Okay. So make sure, yep, that's a right side with the right side. And here we go, right side with the right side. So you should have 2, and you are now going to pin. And let me tell you where you're going to pin this. You are going to pin the unnotched edges. So you have this edge with this little cutout. It's going to be the straight edge. This is the edge that you're going to pin, and then ultimately the edge that you are going to stitch. That would be your unnotched edge. So I am pinning mine now, and then I'm going to be stitching both pieces. I'll pin both, and then I'll stitch both. Get right sides together. I'm gonna tell you, like, again, I really do like neutral colors, but sometimes when you just want to be seen, that's why I think I was hesitant about my colors for frocktails, because I'm like, oh, I want to be bold, but sometimes you could be bold in the style that you create. So not just the fabrics that you pick. So we'll see what I end up doing. Actually, I think I know what I'm doing. You'll have to wait and see. I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I think. I know until I don't. All right, so I have pinned the unnotched edge, again, that straight edge. And now I am about to do a straight stitch down each of those unnotched edges on the lapel. And for those that are just joining, we are sewing McCall's 8361 is what we're sewing now. We're working on, we are at step number 13, which is the lapel. We are stitching the lapel. I'm going to turn this around so you can see, because I literally just did it here. You could see this. This is exactly what we're doing there, if you were wondering. Okay, I just see my Instagram folks just went away. So I'm just logging them back in. Part 1, 8361. And let's see. And there we go. I think we're done. Share. And let me log back in. Live. And there we go. All right, there we go. I'm logging back in. I hate that we have to do that. Here we go. All right. First one done, and now we're on to the second one. Hello, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Here we go. We have sewn. Both of the lapel pieces are sewn. And let's see, we're going to also do an understitch. And we are understitching on the uninterfaced section. So you are literally opening it up and you are stitching, you're opening it up because this one is much easier because it doesn't have like a curved piece. You're opening it up and you are stitching this interface piece down onto the uninterfaced piece, and you're doing that for both of your lapel pieces. It also probably is helpful to go ahead and just iron it out since it's such a flat piece. So get your iron out. Thank you for hopping back on. I'm just doing now, we're doing step 14, which is, and actually before I do that understitching, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you know what I did? Get out of here. Did I do that? I did. Guess what I did? I stitched the wrong side. Even though I had it pinned, I didn't look at my pinning. So I'm going to take this out really quick. Happens to the best of us. This is why it's good to have a seam ripper available and ready to go. Didn't pay attention. So once you have stitched both of your lapels on the unnotched side, don't make the same mistake I made. You are going to then understitch. You're going to basically iron it open flat. That'll make it easier. And then you are going to stitch that seam allowance down onto the uninterfaced side to create a very narrow stitch. And it will help. So you could see, like on this one where it kind of comes over a little bit, you could see the seam. It'll help pull that back so that you don't have that. I know you probably can't see it, but on one of my lapels, I wish that I would have. I skipped the understitching because initially when I started doing it, I was like, oh, this is a muslin. I'm not going to wear it. But then it started looking so good. I was like, oh, I'm wearing this. So I started caring about it halfway through. creating the muslin. I was like, oh, I'm wearing this, I'm making this, and I love it. I tried it on and I love it. So I am dressed again. I made a mistake and stitched on the wrong side, not paying attention. I'll tell you, as much as I love sewing, and sewing for me is really just a way to decompress after a long day, after a long week, it is not a mindless thing. You have to pay attention. You can't just like, it's not something that you could just do without thinking, or at least it's not for me. Maybe, I don't know that it ever is that, but sometimes you start going through the motions and like, oh, no, you have to pay attention every step of the way, every step. Otherwise, you end up doing what I just did, which is stitching it to the wrong side, even though you have pinned the correct side. I just took it down that thing and kept it moving. So at least I did not understitch it too. That would not have been good. I have to order some more Hinkar fabric from Grace. I haven't ordered any. Oh yes, I did. I ordered a scrap bag pack, but I'm going to order some more fabric from her. All right, there we go. So that is done. I've just taken it loose, and now I'm gonna pin it. I'm going to do it correctly. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Got a quick. There we go. There we go. Now that I've done that, I am now going to open this out, iron it flat, and then I'm going to put my understitching in. Here we go. And again, you're opening it out, you're understitching the interface side onto the uninterfaced side. So this is again where a edge foot would be helpful, because you can just line it up with that edge, with that stitch, and go to work. Again, making sure that you kind of put a little bit of tension on it, pulling it out so that you don't have any extra fabric on it. There we go. And then the next step would be we'll have to still do the other one, but you can fold it and you're going to press. Could press it. Does it tell us to do that? Yes, it does. So I'm just finger pressing it first. And then I'm pressing it with my iron. All right, one lapel is done. You can see it's not going to have any of that overage that I have with this one. All right. And now I'm going to do this one the same way. Again, making sure that you are understitching onto the uninterfaced side. And there we go. That side is done now as well. And I'm just folding it over, finger pressing it, and then I am going to press it with my iron. There we go. All right. So there we go. The two lapel pieces are done. And now we're going to, it says open our lapel at the upper edge and pin the lapel to the collar. So we did our piece 5 and the collar is piece 4. And what did I do with my collar? Here we go. So here's our collar pieces right here. Here's our collar. So we are taking our, and I know you can't really see, or maybe you can see this. Okay, so we're taking our collar piece and we are turning it so that the curved piece is facing, or the curve is facing down. And then I'm going to lay this flat. We're going to take one. We're going to take our interface piece. So move this over. Take our interface piece and you are going to line it up with the edge. So you'll see that there's this little corner, this little edge right here. It lines up perfectly with the edge of the collar. You will see that. And you're going to just pin that in there. And in fact, there is actually a notch there as well. So I'm going to pin that, and you're opening it up. You're not pinning the entire lapel down. You are only pinning the interfaced piece down. And there are actually dots there that you're going to stitch those from one dot to the edge. So I'm going to pin that. And now I am going to do the other piece, which again, you're going to take this edge, this little edge right here, and you're going to line it up with the same edge of your collar. Opening it up, only the interface piece. You're going to open up that lapel and you're only pinning the interface piece. And you are, yeah. So I'm pinning this down now, and I am going to stitch from the notch all the way to the edge, or the marking all the way, or the dot, or all the way to the edge. And there's notches too where that you could match up. Make sure. Okay, here we go. sure I line it back up. So I don't want any. Okay, there we go. Oops. And this is one of those areas where I'll hand make sure that all right, one side done. And now I'm going to do the same thing on this side, which is again just creating that stitch from the marking the dot to the edge is what we're doing. All right. Okay. Now we've literally pinned these two, and you are now going to take, make sure. Yes, you're going to take this, the other half. So again, let me just show you what I did. So you've stitched this top portion of the lapel to the collar. Remember the collar, the curved part is facing down. The little curved part of the collar is facing down. And now you're going to take this open part of the other half of the lapel and you're going to close it, or you're going to basically wrap it around the other way, just like this. So you're closing it like this. And you're going to pin that, and you're going to do that on both sides. And you might need to iron it back out, press it back out so that it lays flat, but you want to just make sure that that piece lines up exactly the same way the other piece did, and you're going to pin that. And I'm doing both sides. And again, it might be helpful to iron it back out so it stays, because it's, going in the other direction if you need to. But you are basically pinning it on the other side. So right now we are at step 16, where we are fixing the lapel pieces to the collar. That's what we're doing here. And so we have, just to repeat, we have pinned the lapel sections over the collar, right sides together. So right sides of each of the lapel pieces are sandwiching the right side of each of the collar pieces is in the middle. You're matching the notches and the dots, and you are going to stitch that upper edge, and then we're going to trim the seam. So we're literally going to stitch back this upper edge. We're going to stitch that, but now we have the other piece of the lapel on the other side. So the collar is kind of sandwiched in the middle of those two pieces. So we're going to stitch that going straight across, And we're going to do it on both sides at the top. All right. I'm just going to read this one more time just to make sure, for good measure. For good measure. Pin the lapel sections over the collar, right sides together, matching the notches and the dots. Stitch the upper edge, trim the seam, and turn the lapel right side out, turning the collar upward. Yep. Okay. And even though I did this just yesterday or the day before, I think I did, I just want to make sure. Because the worst thing is to have to use the seam ripper. No one wants to use the seam ripper. Let me just, I want to see it. Yep, this is it. I gotta still trim it, but you're gonna be able to, you can kind of see, that's it. Okay, turn it back out. Okay, so now I'm doing the same thing on this side. Same thing. All right, get your irons out. But before you do that, you are going to trim, let me see, trim those seams. So you should have a little seam right here. You're going to trim that, and then you're going to turn it out. So turn your irons on. They could be warming up while you are, and actually I'm going to use my pinking shears to trim that seam. This is thick. It's not going through as easy as it did the first time. And let me do it on this side. Ooh, it is thick. All right, there we go. And now I am turning it. I'm going to turn that out. And I'm going to press that. And it looks very good. Very, very good. I'm very happy with the way that it looks. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Turn it out. Make sure it has that nice crisp corner. There we go. And I am going to press that. And it looks really good. You could see it, you would agree. If you could see it as well as I could see it, you would agree. So there we go. The collar and the lapel are, for the most part, put together. Let's say that. They're put together. We still have other steps we need to do with them, which includes the next step, which is basting the lapel, the raw edges of the lapel down. So while it's right sides out for this whole piece, you are going to now do a basting stitch down the lapel on each side, just again to hold it together. doing a basting stitch. So I'm going to adjust mine to 5.0, which is what I use as a basting stitch. And I'm going to put this in. You're going to do like a narrow stitch, or right close to the raw edge. That's what I'm doing. Basting stitches, for the most part, are meant to be taken out, but if I can avoid using my seam ripper, I do. And I'm doing the other side now. Again, just a nice basting stitch to hold it down. All right, here we go. Here we go. Basting stitch is done. And now we are going to pin the collar and lapel to the front and neck edge. So now we are pulling back out pieces 1 and 2, which is the bodice that we created earlier. So you're going to have it right sides facing up, and you are going to pin your bodice, your collar and lapel to the bodice. So this is where you're going to match your notches and your center pieces. You want to make sure you match those. I will be honest in that I cut very little notches. Little, not that I didn't cut them, I cut them small, so I have to really look for them. But this is basically what we're doing. We are attaching this piece to this piece. So I am pinning now. I'm looking for my notches, and then I will be pinning when I find my notches. Okay, here's one. And here is the other. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So you're pinning, again, it's right sides together. So you should have your bodice facing up as you are pinning. Hello, hello, hello. For those that have just joined, we are doing 8361 is what we are doing. And we are on step 18, which is attaching the bodice to the lapel and collar. So you are finding your notches and you are lining them up. And you are pinning those pieces together, because then we are going to create a basting stitch around these pieces. And let me see. I don't know. Let me see. Now, I will tell you, one of the challenges that I had when I created this is, if I remember correctly, my it didn't line up, and it took me a minute to figure it out. Now, the one thing I will say is that, again, this jean fabric that I created my wearable muslin in is stretchy. And so I figured that was the reason that it didn't line up. But I'm also seeing where my notches are off just a tad. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to play around with it because I was able to eventually get it to fit. But I don't know. I'm seeing that I am having that same problem this time around. So we're going to play around with it a little bit, get that to match. And we'll go from there because this fabric does not stretchy, so it doesn't have that same ability to ease it in that I was able to do with the jean, the stretchy jean fabric. So we will see. We will see. But it should be end to end. One end of your lapel should match the bottom of your bodice, and the other end should be matched up to the other side. So you might have to work backwards and kind of ease it in from there. All right, I feel like I might be okay. So it's just like my center notch didn't line up, but this one is. So maybe my center notch was just off a little bit on this one, but I think I'm gonna be good to go. Yep, I am. All right, there we go. So I'm not having that problem here at all. Very little, I should say, because it's a little bit, but nothing like what I had on the first one. I'm just going to make this just a little teeny bit. Just a little bit. Hello, hello, hello for those that are just joining. Again, we're working on McCall's 8361, and we are on step 18, which is matching the bodice up to the collar and lapel. So we're pinning it first, and then we are going to do a basting stitch next, which I feel like. All right, so I have it pinned. It is pretty close to being lined up. So now I'm going to create this basting stitch. And let me just take I'm just going to pin this. All right, here we go. And again, we're doing a basting stitch around this whole entire inner collar from one end to the other. And just know around the curves, you may need to do some clippings to make it, fit in there well, but that is an option that you have. Sure, don't do that. Yeah, I think so. Just making sure that I get the right sides. Again, one of the challenges with having this fabric that's the same on both sides, I mean, in this case, both sides are the right side of the fabric, but it is, yep, no, that's good. It just looks the same. You just have to take your time and double check. There we go. Again, I'm just doing this basting stitch all the way around. And it's a little bit of looseness, but it's not bad. And also make sure that your fabric is not bunched up underneath. I mean, we're only doing a basting stitch, but still it could, you know, you might have to take a section out to fix it. So you don't want to, you want to avoid that if you can. All right, almost done. All right, basting stitch is done. And again, this was the step where step 18, where we pinned the lapel and collar to the front and back bodice. So we are done that part, and now we are moving on to the neck facing. So that is piece 6. So you're going to pull out piece 6 and piece 7. So you're going to put this to the side for a minute, and you're going to pull out piece 6 and piece 7. And piece 6 is one that looks like the L shape. It looks like a little bit of an L or 7. So you're pulling that out, and you are also going to have 2 pieces. Both of them are interfaced. I'm going to move my pattern piece to the side. 4, 5, and 6 pattern piece I'm going to move to the side. So you have 2 pieces, and they are both again interfaced. And you are going to take piece 7, which you should have 1 piece that is interfaced. And you are going to be taking piece 7, and you're going to be stitching both piece 6 to piece 7. So let me see. One of the things, is it like this? Let's see. Yes. So the curved or the outside of the curve is going to be facing up. So when you lay piece 7, the edges of piece 7 out or piece 6 out, you are going to be putting them together. And actually, I should turn it the other way because it is going to be right sides together. So you want it to be facing up. If you could see my screen, I think everyone can, you'll see that it is, so that way when you lift it up, and make sure, oh, actually, it's the wrong way. It is the long piece that you are stitching, not the short piece, the long piece. And let me just make sure I have mine facing the right way. Yes. And this is a good time to be able to look at the instructions to see, compare, to make sure that you have it all lined up the correct way. The other thing is that you do have notches, but the notches are exactly the same on both sides. So your notches should line up. And if they do, you know that you have it faced the correct way. So you're going to pin. So just again, so that you can see, I'm going to lay it out a little bit so that you can see it. This is such a long pattern piece, so you're not capturing the whole thing on it, but it's basically like an upside down 7 with the, let me see if I can get this in the screen so you can see it. For those that are on Instagram, you can't really see it, but this is the way that it's facing. So if you could see that. So you do have notches, and it will be helpful to line your notches up. You do have notches. So line those notches up. You're going to pin piece 6 to piece 7, and then you are going to stitch 5/8 seam allowance. So I'm pinning now. I am pinning, pinning, pinning. And again, for those that are just joining, we are doing 8361. We are sewing it. We are on step 19. And this gives you a little bit of an example of what we're doing, except for instead of shorts, we are doing a skirt instead of shorts at the bottom. Hey, Anthony. Okay, so I have the pieces pinned, and now I'm about to stitch them together. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, one down, one to go. This is not, perfect science. The one thing I will say is that, I just realized that I have to stitch that again. And make sure that you turn your stitch back, because I had it set on a basting stitch, and I also did not have it set center. So I'm going to do that other seam again. But I was looking online to see, is there a YouTube sew along to this pattern? There is not. So one of the reasons why I do the muslin is because to help me, help me make sure, like, do I know the majority, or do I feel comfortable with the majority of the steps? But it's still not an exact science. but having somebody else go through it is definitely helpful. So if you do plan on sewing this, hopefully you can come back to this tutorial. Find the section that you need help with, and use it. Use this tutorial to help you. And again, if you sew this later, don't hesitate to drop me messages on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, and I will respond with what my experience is. At this point, I've made the bodice twice, so I will definitely be able to help you. So after you sew piece 6 to piece 7, get your iron out, iron those seams open. Right now, this is actually the neck and side seam facing that we're going to be stitching. All right, there we go. Open that up. And I'm just going to take my iron. And I'm going to press that out. And I was just taking out a basting stitch that I had accidentally sewed in. All right, here we go. I think we're making pretty good time. Making pretty good timing. All right. So there we go. We have that done. And now this next step is it's asking us to finish the inner seam. The inner edge of the facing. So if you're looking at the facing, it is basically asking us to finish this, what it says the inner edge, but it's this outside area all the way around. And so the way that you're going to do that is you are literally, unless you have like a rolled hem foot, what I did was I just folded it under 1/4 and ironed it, pressed it all the way around, and then I put in a stitch, a narrow hem stitch. So that is what I'm going to do. That does take, it does take a few minutes to do that all the way around. But that's what I'm doing right now. So this is one of those steps that I would have loved to do ahead of time, because it just does take so long, but I didn't want to do too much ahead of time. So you're just seeing me, and I saved the curves for last because getting in those little curves is a little tricky. So I saved it for last. So we're just finishing that inner part, the inner edge of the facing. Is what we're finishing at this point. And again, what I do is turn it under about 1/4 of an inch and I press it. I saved the curves and that inner part of that 7 or L, whatever you're calling it. I saved that piece for last. I come back and I do that at the end. Yeah, this definitely was something that took me a little bit of time when I was doing it on my own. I mean, with the muslin, it definitely took me a little bit of time to do this piece. The curves are the trickiest. They are doable. I did them and I feel like it turned out very well, but it just takes time to iron these pieces. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Can you serge it? You can, but you're going to still have to, yeah, you could serge it. You could, and then just fold it under. That might make it a little bit easier. Not a bad, not a bad option. It probably would make it a little bit easier. But you still then have to fold it. So you still have to fold it so that you could have that finish, unless you don't mind your edge being just having the serged edge. If you don't mind just having a serged edge, then as your finished edge. But if you want a finished edge, and I'll show you, I think I can show it to you on this. But you could serge it. Sometimes serging it does make it easier to fold it under. You could definitely do that. So I'm about halfway done kind of doing the folding part of the, before I take it to the machine. Yeah, I mean, if you want this finished, so it ends up being, you can't, I don't know if you could really see it, but it ends up, you can't, so for the purposes of the dress, no one is going to see that piece. So if you just had a serged edge and you did not fold it and do a stitch, only you know it's there. So no one can see it. So technically, if you wanted a faster way, yeah, you could definitely just serge it and just leave it because you're not going to see that edge. 100%. That is, I was just looking at where it was on the garment and you don't see it. Only you know that it's there. No one ever sees it. So you could definitely do that. And it would be a time saver for sure. It would save you time and it's easier just to kind of serge it. So it's I would agree with you. I probably would do that. Thinking about it further, I probably would do it. Now, just kind of thinking about where it is on the garment and the fact that it's not seen anywhere. You don't even see it anywhere. It's just inside. The part that you see is going to be, you're going to stitch to another piece. So yeah, it would definitely save you time to just serge it. And it's not a bad option, honestly. So great suggestion, actually. Because I would be done right now if I was just searching it. I would be done. Okay, so I have folded down 90%. The only thing I have left to fold is these curves, which are tricky, but doable. So I'm just going to fold them a little bit and just enough to make it easy for me to to stitch it. So I'm just going to fold it and put a little bit of steam in there. Here we go. Yeah, these curves are intense. But it fits perfectly. So it fits, it lines up perfectly. I don't know how I got it. So it's giving me a harder time now than I had when I did it before, but I was able to get it real, and it's very clean too. All right, I got that one. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit, this piece. And I got one more little curve to do, and then I'm going to create that narrow stitch. Okay, for those that are on Instagram, it will disconnect in about 5 minutes or so. So when it does disconnect, I will get right back on. So just log back on. In about, 15, 20 seconds, it should be back up. I hate that, Instagram disconnects after an hour of live. I didn't realize it did that, but it's definitely done that for me every single time I'm on live. All right, last little piece of ironing, and I think we're good to go. All right, now I'm going to do a narrow stitch, and we'll be finished this part. We'll be finished finishing the inner, what are they calling this? The inner edge of the facing. All right, another great place to use the edge foot. All right, here we go. With this, sewing this dress, you just always have to make sure you check your stitch, because you go from doing basting stitches to, edge stitching to regular stitches. And what I've noticed is that, your needle is sometimes left of center, right of center. Your stitch goes from a 2.5 to a 5.0, and you just want to make sure that you're always paying attention to what it is, so that you don't end up with a basting stitch that's supposed to be a regular stitch, or that the location of the stitch is left of center and not center. All right. I'm about to go around this curve, which is going to be so tricky, but I got it. Okay, here we go. right, one curve down. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for joining. I think at this point, I mean, if there is anybody that's sewing along, definitely let me know. But I know there's a couple of people that will be making it after today. They want to see the sew along first. But if you do make it after today, be sure to tag me. I would love to repost anything that anyone makes. I love reposting when people make things from the sew along, even if you don't do it during the sew along. If you do it after, definitely repost it. I mean, tag me so I can repost it. Or if you don't want me to, just let me know when you tag me and send me an inbox message. I will not repost it if you don't feel comfortable. There we go. All right, looks like we just lost our Instagram friends again as we are wrapping up our second hour. I'm going to finish this and then I'll add them back in. We are again just finishing up, adding a finish or a, Did I miss that? I did. Let me just check my bobbin. Oh, I got plenty of thread in my bobbin. All right, let's add. Oh, wait a minute. Are they back? Okay, we are now live again. Okay, there we go. So our Instagram friends, welcome back. All right, let me see if I can pick up where I left off. So we are doing the last part of finishing this facing. It looks really good. About to go around this last curve, and then we will be almost finished. Almost finished this facing, I should say. Let me be clear. Yeah, when doing around these curves, you just have to take your time. Let me see what is happening there. There we go. Hi, Sandra. Thank you for coming back. I'm not sure. It's saying reconnecting. There we go. I don't know what's going on with our my Instagram, but it's saying we're having some connection problems, so hopefully it'll be resolved and people will be able to hop on. Let me see. After I finish this step, I will check it out. There we go. Yay. We have finished this step, which is doing the finishing touches to the outside. Okay. I finished that. Now let me just see. I'm going to try to, let me see, in now. Let's see. I don't know what's happening with it, but let's see. $83, $61. I'm just adding back our Instagram. All right, well, let's try. We're going to try to go live again. There we go. We're trying to go live. Okay, so we're going to continue to keep moving along. So now that we finishing the outer edge of this neck facing, our next step is that we are going to pin the facing to the front, neck, and lower edges. So you're going to get back out your bodice that you already have attached your collar and lapel to. You're going to lay it so that your right side is facing up. So you're going to lay it so your right side is facing up. And you are then going to take it so that the inner facing side, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Your inner facing side is facing let me make sure. Think about what I did. Okay, now I do remember. And yes, okay. So let's start again. Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. I can't wait to see when you make this. We're moving right along. We're in our just finished our second hour, and we are in step 21 of finishing our bodice. We've attached our lapel and our collar, and we are now attaching the facing. Okay, so right side's up, and you are gonna have your collar. Your collar is kind of opened, I guess is what I should say. It's the right side of the collar, right side's up. You are taking your facing, and you are literally, make sure I'm saying this right. You are pinning, make sure, because I'm feeling like I'm not saying this right. Oh yeah, okay. The raw edges. Yes, okay, there we go. You are doing the raw edges of your facing lined up to the raw edges of your collar and lapel. And so it's right sides together, facing each other. And you do have notches, and you do have notches that you can use to line it up. But basically that everything should line up. Your curved edge of the L will line up with the other curved edge at one end. The corners will line up. They should line up with each other. And then you're going to line up that all the way around that collar. Again, right sides facing each other. So I'm going to start pinning it, and then I will show you what it looks like when you're finished. And you're not stitching this entire piece, by the way. So you're not going to stitch this entire piece. Not yet. So just start by pinning the corners first. I can get my pin to go through it. There we go. So engineer, what's your first name, or what should I call you? So I'm just pinning the raw edges lined up, matching notches, the facing to right sides together. Oh, I don't know if I could say that right. Oak. O-Y-K. I know I'm not saying that right. Oik. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Anyway, I was thinking about your idea, Sabrina. So Engineer had asked a question earlier today. Oh, O-Y-K. Okay, the letters, O-Y-K. She had, is it a she? Let me see. Yes, she. She had said, like, hey, you know, when you are finishing the facing, the neck facing, can you just, you know, why can't you just, or can you just serge it? Or are you asking video to your YouTube? Am I adding this video? Yes, I will. I am. This video, I am on YouTube right now. So this live video is on YouTube, and it will be on YouTube. So you'll be able to see it for when you do it. But I wanted to tell you about what OYK said, which is, you know, the question that she had asked was, hey, you know, can you just serge? Can you just do a serge? And, you know, I thought about it, and I looked at, you know, my muslin, and I realized that, you know, it is really difficult, especially around those curves, to sew, to fold under 1/4 and then to do a stitch around those curves of that neck facing. And so, yeah, a great alternative. If I ever make another one, which I probably will make another dress, I will definitely serge that piece, and I will not do that fold over and stitch to finish that neck facing. That is a great alternative, especially because it's a finish. You don't see it. And so, yeah, I think it's a great option. And I wish I would have thought about it, because it took me a good probably 5 or more minutes to fold that under, and then probably 10 minutes if I had to really think about it, to fold it under and then stitch it around, all for something that no one is going to see. So that was a great suggestion. And you know, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yes, that's the right thing to do. That's a great alternative. Okay. So I have literally stitched this entire, or pinned this entire facing. So it's right sides together. So I'm just going to repeat this step just to be clear about it. When you are attaching the neck facing to the bodice, you're going to lay the bodice down so that the right side is facing up. Which includes laying the collar and lapel flat, because you want those right sides facing up as well. And then you are going to pin the facing to the you're going to pin the facing to the lapel, going all the way up around. So raw edges together, right sides facing, raw edges together. You're going to pin that lapel all the way around, so that it is evenly from one end to the other. You're literally going to pin it. And so in terms of where we're stitching, we are stitching in 2 places. So there's 2 places that we are stitching. You are also going to pin the curved portion of what I'm calling an L. So an L or a 7, however you want to call it, you are going to just pin that curved portion, because you are also only going to stitch the curved portion in between the 2 dots. So there are 2 dots. You can't, well, maybe you can see them. You're going to just stitch, you're going to pin and stitch in between these 2 dots. So I'm going to pin those pieces right now. So you're going to have like a little opening there, that where you're not going to, you're going to pin. Hold on, I'll show you in a minute. Let me just pin. So it's 2, and you'll see that those 2 curved parts, they actually really, they line right up with the fabric. So you're going to pin those, you're going to stitch that, and then you'll see that you have this little open section right here. You're not going to do anything with that. And then you're going to stitch all the way down and around. So you're going to start at this other dot that you have right here, and you're going to stitch down all the way around, all the way around. And this, let me see, make sure, is it a basting stitch? It is not. It is a regular stitch. So you're going to stitch all the way around until you get to the other end, at which you're going to leave that opening again, and it'll be the opening that will align with where you did the gathering. And then you're going to also pin the other side of this curved piece. You'll pin that in between the 2 dots, and then you're going to stitch that as well. So I'm just going to pin that, and you'll see that it does line up perfectly. So I am just pinning this. And I am going to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch those 2 sections that I said. Again, you're going to stitch that curved part of the 7, and then you're going to leave that middle portion open, and then you're going to go along the lapel all the way around the collar, back to the other side, to the other end of the lapel, and then you'll stitch that other portion of the 7. And all of these are stitched at 5/8 of an inch. And there we go. I'm just going to make sure my stitch is centered. There we go. Just stitching that in between those 2 dots. Okay, that part is done. And now I'm actually going to go to this other end. Do the same thing on this side. And I'm putting that stitch in. Just stitching from 1 dot to the other at 5/8 of an inch. All right, and now I'm going to start doing this 1 single stitch all the way around. 5/8 of an inch. And again, you're going to make sure that there's no gathering underneath. There we go. And I'm just stitching around. All right. And I'm just stitching around. So which view am I making? That's a great question. I realize I never said that. So I am making view A. I'm making view A, but I am doing the sleeves of C. So I'm doing C's sleeves, but I'm doing view A in terms of the length of the skirt. So the only differences between view A, view B, and view C are the length of the skirt and the sleeves. Those are your options. And of course, you can mix and match whatever part you want with whatever, you know, whatever part you want. So I chose the shorter straight sleeves instead of the, you know, kind of bubble sleeves, which I like, but I just chose to do something different because I'm doing some of those sleeves on some of the other dresses and garments that I'm making. So I decided not to repeat it here with this one. So Sabrina, have you decided? You said you'll be doing view C, but with length B. Okay, okay. I can't wait to see it. You are, I mean, your sewing is so good. How long have you been sewing, Sabrina? You're just doing such a great job. Okay, almost done. Almost done. Just finishing up a few more little pieces. Again, you always want to make sure that you don't have any bunching underneath. You know, that's the worst thing, to have to take it all out because you have bunching, or take portions of it out. And something like this where you have layers, it's so easy to have bunching. It's definitely happened to me. You started late last year, so you're like right around the same as me. I started, well, you probably started a little bit after me. I started sewing in July of last year. And I've, you know, I'm consistently sewing, so I've made a lot of progress. but you're doing, I mean, when I saw your garment, I was like, oh, you're doing so good. When I saw all of your stuff on, yeah, I thought you were doing really good. When I saw your stuff on Minerva.com and all the stuff that you just recently posted, I was like, this is great. You're doing a really good job. Very impressive. Okay, I think we are done this step. Okay, let me make sure. Yes, we are done. So I have stitched this all the way around. And so the next step is to understitch, our favorite. You said you took a short beginners class a year ago, but only started taking it serious last year. I totally understand. That's, I did do Mimi G Sew It Academy. I took several, kind of classes from there that really helped me. Really, really helped me kind of get my bearings in terms of the basics and understand some of the terminology. And then I just went from there. So yeah, but you're doing a great job. I'm excited to see what your dress is going to look like, because my personal opinion is this is probably not a beginner's garment, but based on what I saw you do, I definitely think you're not going to have any problem. It might take you a little bit longer, but I don't see you having any problem with this. Okay, so we're going to do some understitching right now, which is stitching let me see, what are they telling us to understitch? Understitch the facing. So we are going to be stitching this. Let me make sure I know which one we are understitching, where we're putting this. Or we're stitching it onto the facing. Yes, so this time we're doing it onto the facing. So you are going to be stitching the seam allowance onto the facing, because the facing is the part that you are not going to be seeing in this case. So you are stitching the seam allowance onto the facing everywhere you have stitched it down. So that's your understitching. And again, that's going to make sure it does not roll out, so you don't see it. You don't see that seam. The seam will be under. So now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm getting this under my sewing machine. All right, there we go. So yeah, this dress is beautiful. I'm going to be really excited when I finish it, just based on how the shorts look. But it's a lot of little steps. Okay, here we go. And so again, we're just doing the step of the understitching. I did not understitch, just for the record, I did not understitch in this garment that I made when doing these steps. I kind of skipped those steps just because my purpose initially in doing the muslin is to familiarize myself with all the steps of making it. But understitching definitely adds to the look, to the finished look. You said the pattern seems a little bit intimidating. It's, you know what it is? There are a lot of steps. So what I would say is that, if you're thinking about doing it, maybe do it over a weekend when you can take your time doing it. But what I will do is when I post the final dress, I'll post some of the skills that you need, like understitching, top stitching, doing darts. You need to be able to do an invisible zipper. Gathering is another one. there is a hook and eye that is a part of it. So there are definitely some steps to it, but it is something that if you take your time, you can definitely, if you are, I would say if you're a brand new beginner, this is not something that is a garment that you would do as your first thing. I would not do this as my first. I wouldn't recommend that someone do it as their first garment for sure. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yes. I'm just making sure that I put the understitching on the right side. And I did. And I did. Did I? Yes, I did. Okay. So, but yeah, it is doable. It's definitely doable. It's just, you got to take your time. You said that's why I'm doing mine tomorrow. I need to take my time. Yes, that is right. Take your time. I totally agree with that. And when you take your time, it's actually, like I said, I actually had fun making this because I was able to make it. I made it over a couple of days, just working on it a little bit in the evenings. And I was able to work through what I started it just thinking, I'm just going to do the collar. I'm just going to do the lapel. And then I just started. So I actually made this garment completely out of order. I made the collar and the lapel first, and then I went back and made the bodice. I just started making little pieces at a time, and next thing you know, I was connecting those pieces, which is why I ended up doing the shorts instead of the skirt, because you could totally do it. Obviously, I did it. You could totally decide, hey, I want to connect this to, something different than a skirt. And the other thing I would say is that it'll probably be helpful that, there'll be this video. Yes, the bottom is shorts. So I don't know if you could see it, but the bottom are shorts. Let me see if I could tighten so you could see. Yes, the bottom is short. So I literally did it exactly the same way that we attached the skirt to the thing. I just used the same steps. So I created the facing. I put the zipper in. I connected it the exact same way. It's just, I even put the gathering in the top. I don't know if you could see it well, but it is exactly the same as you would do as if we were attaching the skirt. And I was doing that just to familiarize myself with the steps. So the only thing that I didn't do is that the skirt does have a facing at the bottom of the skirt. And, I just did a regular hem, fold under and stitched. Okay, let me see. Where am I? Make sure I don't confuse myself. Okay, now I'm about to do, make sure. This is a little tricky. So I'm still putting in my understitch in here, which is a little tricky because you can't do it. You can do it as far as you could do it, but I'm not going to be able to do it in every part. So I'm just going to do it around the top again, making sure that you are laying it flat and you are understitching onto the facing. Yes. yes, you can always come back to this this video. And I will tell you that, you know, there aren't any videos of this on on YouTube, any tutorials. So hopefully this is helpful because there are lots of steps. And, you know, some parts of the instructions could be clearer. I'll say that. So hopefully you find this helpful when you do decide, oh, I'm going to do this. You find it helpful. And the great thing about like YouTube is that you can fast forward, you could speed it up so you don't have to listen to it. Because ultimately it'll probably end up being like 3.5 hours or so. You don't have to listen to it 3.5 hours. You can skip right to the sections that you want or that you think you need, which is always helpful. So again, I'm just doing this understitching. And then we're going to press it out. And I think we'll be almost done this part for now. Until we are attaching. Oh, actually we'll be stitching together the side seams. Again, I'm taking my time because I want to make sure I don't have any kind of, you know, bunching underneath the underside of this. So I'm just taking my time. Almost. We are almost done. Oh, it looks like I might be able to. All right, I think I finished that whole, was able to understitch that entire piece. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. Now you're turning it right side out. And again, I know it's hard to see because the fabric is, you know, the thread just melts into it, but just know that I did understitch. Now I see one area where I don't like it, the way it kind of bunched up a little bit underneath there. And I'm gonna take it and pick that apart to release that. I'm not going to take the whole seam out. I'm just taking this one little piece out because again, it's an understitching. So there we go. And I'm actually going to turn on another light. So all right, there we go. So a little bit of bunching happened underneath there. And now I'm just undoing it so it can be free. right. I just want it to be completely, okay, there we go. Yes. So this is one of the things I will share, like in a tip, is definitely take your time, because it is so easy when you're folding that facing. You have three layers. You have the facing, you have the collar, and then you have the bodice. And it's so easy for that to, you know, it's so easy for you to get that bunching under there. But I just fixed it. And let's see. All right, and now I'm just gonna give it a nice, I'm gonna press it. I'm gonna press this. And then we're gonna move on to the next step, which is, oh, let me heat my iron up. And so the next, after we press this, we are gonna, it says to tack the back neck facing at the shoulder seams, wrong sides together, and then adjust those gathers and base. So we'll do that next. All right, let me just, and I'm just ironing that whole section. There we go. Now I'm just going to do this and move my rusty instructions out the way. Hey Anna, hi Tammy, hi Lysandra. Thank you all for joining. We are working on live sewing, going step by step through 8361. And we are finishing up we are finishing up stitching the facing, the neck and side facing. So I'm just ironing, pressing it. This is a very curvy part, so it could be, this is where your hand would be really good to make it easier for you to iron these curved parts around the neck. I can't wait to wear this dress. I'm not lying. I'm excited to wear it. Very excited to wear it. All right, let me just iron this last piece. And we're going to move on to the next step. Woo, hot. All right. All right, I feel like we have all of those pieces ironed. And now I'm going to turn it out, wrong side out or right side in. And let me just see where we're at. So we are, now we've done this piece. We have attached, so we are lining up the shoulder seams, the side seams. So I'm laying it wrong side facing out. And you want to make sure that, again, that you have the entire one, that you have the wrong side facing out, and that you're lining up the entire side pieces. And you're going to open out. So let me just, you have your facing piece, and you're going to open that facing piece out. So when you're lining up your side piece, you are actually leaving your facing of the front side piece. You're opening it out, if that makes sense. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I guess I'll just hold it up and show you so you can see it a little bit better. So here's the front. This is the front facing right here. And it has, normally it's folded up. You're going to open it out so that when you match up the side pieces, you are matching them up, but the facing is going to be opened. So you're going to do a basting stitch of just the side piece without the facing connected. So you're going to do that on both sides. So again, you're going to turn it so that your wrong side is facing out. You're going to turn the bodice so the wrong side is facing out. Line up those side seams. Line up the side seams. And then open up the facing of the front. And you're going to just pin the side seams together. First. Just pin those side seams. And then you're going to take, when you get to the bottom, once you have the side seams lined up, you're going to take that facing and you're going to fold it around the bottom. And you're going to pin that. So you're kind of enclosing the back facing. You're going to make a sandwich sort of at the bottom. So it'll be kind of enclosed in there. So you're taking that facing from one side and you're wrapping it around. And when we stitch, we're going to stitch all the way down, including that facing is going to be like wrapped around. So I'm doing it on one side, and now I'm going to just do the same kind of pinning on the other side. So it is wrong sides. Wrong side facing out, right sides facing each other. You're going to pin the other side facing, match up those sides to each other. And they should match up perfectly. And then you're going to wrap around that facing. You're going to wrap the facing from the front that's attached to the front piece. You're going to wrap it around to the back and pin. So it'll be like, it'll make a little sandwich kind of. So this is the inside of the front, and this is the inside of the back. So this piece can be a little bit confusing, but hopefully you understand it. So I'm going to Now go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to just create a stitch going straight down that side seam. 5/8 of an inch, and it'll be a straight stitch going down. And you want to make sure that, you know, there's no bunching underneath, that your fabric is laying nice and smoothly. Oops, something is happening. There we go. Okay, one side is done, and now I'm doing the other side. Again, we're just stitching the side seams down at this point. Five-eighths of an inch. All right, so we have the side seams stitched down and the facing, you wrapped it around, and what that does is it encloses that entire back piece, and you can definitely go in and clip that extra, but it encloses that entire back piece is what it does. Creates a nice little continuous seam, and it's all enclosed inside. Okay, now let's see. Our next step is turn facing to the inside and press and clip the seam allowances, which is what we just talked about. And then we're gonna move on to step 26. So we're just about done the bodice pieces, everything we plan to do with the bodice. For now, just about done those pieces. And we are now going to be, oh, well, the only other thing I would say is that you definitely probably want to press your collar, because we've been pressing it flat all the way up to this point. And so it's just kind of flared out. So you do want to kind of fold out your collar and just press it down. That would be a great thing to do right now. And it'll start to look just like this. We're basically pressing this so that it's laying down. Laying down flat. You definitely need your iron. This is not one of those sew-ons where you can kind of get away with skipping the iron until the end. You definitely need it throughout to help your garment, give your garment shape. and to seal all your stitches. I mean, that's the main reason you should be doing it along the way anyway, but sometimes, as I mentioned before, I'll save it to the end. But this is not one of those garments where you can save it. You want to iron it along the way. So I'm just pressing it, instead of pressing them straight flat out, I'm pressing it down to help give it shape. And it also helps me make sure I'm doing the right thing, because as I mentioned, this, you know, this fabric is, because it's so colorful, it could be easy to, you know, be on the wrong side. And so giving it shape helps you know, like, okay, I'm on the right side. I'm looking at the right thing. All right, last little piece. And then we're gonna align the gathered pieces in the front. We're gonna align those. They cross over onto each other. All right, there we go. I'm gonna move this to the side, and I'm gonna pull another one of my dress forms out. We're gonna use this to help us, you know, see what's going on. Because you'll have that great contrast. To be able to see what is going on, what we just did. If I can get it on here. There we go. So here is what we've just done. Creating this top bodice part. Just pressed it out. And now we're going to be taking, this looks so good. I'm very happy with how it's turning out so far. Very, very happy with it. So we're going to be taking, so our next step is we are going to be taking, there is this portion of the front bodice, the gathered portion that overlaps with each other. We are going to be stitching a basting stitch in this bottom portion. Is what we're actually going to be doing next. That is our next step, is to create that basting stitch. I actually really love the way this bodice came together, and I could see myself actually making another bodice just like this. I am using the Rowenta Performix XL is what I'm using. And it is, when I tell you, it is a nice iron. It is a really nice iron. I just bought another iron that has a water tank on it. It's also, is it a Rowenta? I think it is. It is. Let me see. Yes. So I just purchased this probably like a month ago. I haven't used it yet. I used it once rather. But I'm going to transition over to this because that iron is my iron I use for my everyday clothes. And this is now my sewing iron because it has such a, like, the one thing I find is that when I'm ironing, I'm constantly, because this iron uses so much water, I'm constantly filling it up. You know, the steam is just so powerful. I'm constantly filling it up. So I just did a little bit of research and I got the one with the, and it's also a Rowenta as well. But again, this one, it's nice and it works so well. And I didn't, but I had it for a long, I maybe got it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. So it also lasts because I've had it for a very long time. I used it just for my own clothes. And then I started using it for sewing because I knew that the only thing I will tell you is that the steam is hot. So I think Auntie Carol was telling us about there are these gloves that you can, heat gloves that you can wear. And I think I'm going to be investing in those because sometimes after I iron, it is hard for me to touch the fabric because it's hot. And in fact, I burned my finger, this finger with steam just the other day. So, but the iron is great. So you're going to turn your bodice right side out and you are going to overlap those gathered areas. You're going to overlap those because we're going to be putting in a stitch, a basting stitch into those areas. So I'm just laying mine out and I'm making sure that, so I ended up using my gathering foot. And this is one of those areas where, hey, if you use your gathering foot, you don't have as much flexibility in adjusting the gathers as if you use the other method of gathering. Oh, you said you brought some from Tuesday morning. I've never heard of them before she said it because my fingers just kept getting, burned from, my fingers kept getting burned from the steam. And I'm like, it's because obviously I'm not touching the iron. It was the steam that was doing it. And she was telling me about it. So did you feel like those steam gloves, or did you feel like those heat gloves that they worked? They actually worked. They kept your fingers from burning or getting burned, I guess, from the steam. Because I definitely, I'm going to look, see if somebody has them in their Amazon store and I can go and get them. Okay, so I'm lining up my gathered section on the front bodice. And the one thing is and if you want to follow the directions exactly, you will see that the right lapel lays over the left lapel. I don't know that it makes so much of a difference. I did do that. As you can see with this one, I followed exactly. I don't know that it made a difference, but I'm just pointing that out. So I will be doing that with mine. But the first thing is first, I am going to be lining up the pieces first. And as I was mentioning, or one of the things I was mentioning, check Wawak. Yeah, I definitely would do that because Wawak probably has a great sale with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen one of my gathers, or actually two of them because one wasn't enough, so that I can get all right, there we go. So I'm just pinning this. And okay, good, that was enough. And then I'm laying over the right one, right over top of it. And I'm going to also loosen one of the gathers. So as I mentioned earlier, I use my gathering foot. I use my gathering foot, which, doesn't have as much ability to kind of use the thread to give yourself some flexibility with the gathers. But I just loosened it and I'm good to go. So I'm now going to pin this. I'm pinning the right over the left, and we're going to create a basting stitch. And then we'll be done with this section for now. And we're going to move on to creating the front band, which is going to connect the bodice to the skirt. let me just make sure. I think I have. I take that piece out. Oh, I did. Okay. So again, I'm just lining up the gathered section, laying one over top of the other, lining it up. The other thing I was interested in, or that I, realized is that I was curious as to whether I was going to be able to get this on or off. And I mean, it's a method to it. You put it over the head first, and then you step into the shorts in this case. And I'm assuming that I'm going to do the same thing when it comes to the skirt, that I will be doing that same type, because the zipper is only in the skirt portion. So, all right, so I've pinned these two gathered sections together from the front. I've pinned them together, and let me just notice this. Have a little bit of gathering in the back, which I want to get rid of. Hold on, I'm going to stretch out the back a little bit more. So I don't like the way this is fitting together. So I'm going to loosen one more of these gathers. There we go. To make it line up. I don't want any extra. Even though you can't see it, I just want it to be aligned. All right. And actually what I'm going to do is, this is one of those cases where, here we go, share, part 3. 8361. All right, let me go back to live. I'm just going back to Instagram, and we're going to be going live. I'll tell you, that's the challenging part about Instagram, is that it disconnects every hour. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to do a basting stitch to stitch this front to the facing, because I don't think, yes, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do a basting stitch in here to stitch this together, because I want it to line up and it's not. There we go. So I'm going to create a quick little basting stitch. This is not in the instructions, but it's something that's going to make it easier for me to line up all 4 of these pieces, the front and back pieces. It's going to make it easier for me. So I am going to create a basting stitch. Then that way it's going to be less bulky, because it'll be all even and lined up. So I'm putting it on 5. And again, something that I think is just going to be helpful to me as I'm sewing these 4 pieces together. Just having this basting stitch. All right, so I just did a basting stitch on one piece, and I am now going to do another basting stitch. Okay. And okay, that's one. And now I'm going to see, let me just do it on here as well. And I'm just loosening one of these gathered so that I can get it to line up perfectly. All right, there we go. Now I'm just going to do another basting stitch. Again, it's going to just make it easier for me to line it up, because you're sewing what is eventually going to be multiple pieces together, but you're starting with these 4 pieces first. The front and back. They'll be the facing and the front of the right and left front bodice. All right, and now we're going to overlap those pieces and do another basting stitch. So again, right side's out. Overlapping the front. Yes, this is so much better already, easier. You're just overlapping those 2 front pieces, or if you didn't baste them, it'll be 4 pieces. It'll be the facing and the front of the right side of the front, and the facing and the front of the left side. So now once you have those pinned, that whole front pinned, overlapping and pinned, you'll just baste. You'll do a basting stitch to hold those whole front pieces together. And so I'm doing the basting stitch right now. All right, and now you're going to pull out, so we're finished with this. I'm just going to not finished with it, but we're finished with it right now. And I'm going to put it on the dress form so that you can see what we've accomplished so far. And this won't be on here that long, because we're going to be, once we finish prepping our piece number 8, we will be attaching it before we move on to the sleeves. All right, there you go. This is the front part that we have finished, or what we have finished with the front so far. There we go. So far, that's what we have. All right, so move these out the way. And you're going to get out piece number 8. So piece number 8 looks like this, a rectangle. And with piece number 8, you're going to take one of the pieces and you are going to fold this. You're going to actually, on the interfacing side, facing up, you're going to fold, is it, let's see, 5/8 of an inch. You're going to fold 5/8 of an inch, press, and then you're going to iron it. All right. And it does want you to do a double fold under, but you're not going to see this section. So it's up to you whether you fold it again underneath when you create that narrow hem. But this is what's going to fit over this portion right here. This is going to fit right over that. So I've ironed it and I'm going to do a narrow hem. And this is a regular, it's not a basting stitch, so you're going to go back to your regular 2.5 or whatever your regular stitch is. And I'm actually going to move it over a little bit. There we go. And I'm actually going to need to rethread my machine in a minute because it's telling me it doesn't like it needs to be rethreaded. So I'm going to do that as soon as I finish this. And I'm going to do the other side same way. Okay, and then the next step is you're actually going to take the lower, so once you stitch both of those sides, you're going to fold under the bottom portion 3/8 of an inch, and you're going to press that as well. So I'm going to fold that, and then you're going to, are we doing a stitch in that? Nope, we're not. Woo. Not right now, anyway. The good news is that the skirt will be a little bit quicker to do. So anyway, this is what you're going to end up with. This is what you're going to end up with. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to rethread my machine because it wants to be rethreaded. There we go. Right before we started this project, I actually changed my needle and, you know, used the brush and cleaned out my machine. But sometimes that's just not enough. So I like to just check, make sure there's nothing going on when it starts giving me little checks. I'm like, okay. All right. So you have 2 of these pieces for number 8. So for the first piece, we folded in the side seams 5/8 of an inch, and we did a narrow hem. And then after we finished that, we pressed under. Oh, it says actually press under 5/8 of an inch. Press under 5/8 of an inch, and then trim down to 3/8 of an inch. So that's what you should do for the bottom. Press under 5/8, trim down to 3/8 of an inch. And then you are going to pin the band to the bodice. So we're going to pin the band to the bodice, right sides together. So I'm just going to show you before I take this off of the mannequin or off of the dress form. You are going to take, this is the right side of it. You're going to take this right side and you are going to put that right on top of here. You're going to pin that, and then we're going to create a basting stitch that's going to literally go right across here, right across this bottom portion. So raw edges will be lined up, and you're going to create that, and it's literally going to overlap. It will overlap with the gathered section. It'll overlap with that gathered section. So it'll look just like that. So I'm going to take this off. And you'll keep it right side up. Move some of this out the way. So you'll have it right side up. Lay it down, and then you're going to take that number 8 piece. Your folded edge will be at the top, and you will pin this. Again, you'll center it with that middle piece. And before you actually pin it down, one of the things that would be helpful, especially if you kind of eyeballed, is you want to make sure that you you have this lined. So I'm just going to take my little erasable ink pen. Let me do it right here so you can see. And this is my piece that I'm about to attach. I am literally going to, just because I want to make sure that both of these pieces line up, I'm just going to draw a little line here. This is going to let me know exactly where I need to fold down so that I know these pieces are going to be exactly the same. All right. So again, you're going to take your bodice right side facing out. You're going to take this, the folded edge is going to be at the top, and you're going to lay it over so raw edges are aligned right over top of your gathered section. So it should align or very closely align. If it hangs over a little bit on the edge, it should maybe, if it does, 1/4 of an inch or less. It shouldn't be too much more than that. And so now I'm just pinning this, and then we're going to do a basting stitch right across that bottom portion just to hold this together. Again, we're going to be adding the other piece, which will serve as a facing. All right. So now I am making sure everything is kind of lined up in the back. And I am about to go to the machine, and I'm going to create a basting stitch. We'll turn this up to 5. And here we go. All right, so then you have pinned that down. I mean, you stitch that down. And now we're taking out the other piece, number 8. Oh, here we go. Right here, so you have that second piece. And you're gonna finish the front ends of that facing. So you're gonna basically fold those under as well. Exactly the same way, 5/8 of an inch. And if you drew that line, you'll know, if you measured it out exactly, you should have the same. Doing the same thing on this side. Okay, and now I'm going to create a narrow stitch, same way that we did and actually I need to turn it back, so I'll do this again because I still have my basting stitch in. Do it on the other side. All right. And now we are turning this inside out, turning our bodice inside out. And you're going to have the front facing up. So you're turning the bodice inside out, the front is facing up, and you are taking the second number 8 piece, which is your front band, and you are laying it down right over top. We'll fix that. You're going to lay it right over top, raw edges lined up, and you're going to basically line up this with the other facing. You're going to pin this. You want to make sure it's all lined up. And you're going to stitch this. So once you pin it, so you're going to pin that facing to the bodice, right side's facing. So your inner facing should be facing you. It should be looking up. The right side of the band should be facing the it should be, the right side of it should be facing the facing on the front side of the bodice, if that makes sense. So you have it turned inside out, the bodice is turned inside out, and you are now pinning the other side of the facing with the inner facing facing up. Hi, Natasha. So there you go. So it should look like this. Interfacing on one side and then interfacing on the other. And you're going to put another basting stitch. You're going to put a basting stitch. So again, I'm just going to repeat that. You're going to pin the band facing to the bodice front. And you're with the right sides together. So again, you're turning the bodice inside out so that the outside is facing you. And then you are going to put that front band, you're going to pin it to the bottom. So it's lining with the raw edge of that gathered section. You're going to match the centers and the dots. So you do have dots on there. And you're going to match the center, and then you're going to stitch that lower edge. And we're going to do that right now. It's a regular stitch, not a basting stitch. So also want to make sure that it lines up with the front band so that you stitched earlier. You want to make sure that that is lining up. So we're going to stitch that on right now. So this is a lot of layers. This is a lot of layers. So just know when you're doing this, it's a lot of layers. You have the gathering, you have the interface, 2 interface bands, you have the facing, you have a lot in there. There's a lot. So it's pretty thick. All right, and let me just, okay. And now you're going to turn it right side out. And we're going to get ready to press those band pieces. So you're going to press it down. And if you're basting stitches, you may see your basting stitches, you know you can take those out, because now that you have these pieces all connected, you don't need that basting stitch to hold them anymore. To hold those, the front, the right and the left side. So I am now going to, I'm pulling it out, and I'm going to press the band. So I pulled the band, both the front and the back front band down, or I wouldn't call it back, but the 2 front, the facing band and the front band. I pulled them down, and now I'm just ironing them. Ironing them flat, pressing them. And then tells you to edge stitch. That seamed edge. That would be the next step, but I'm actually gonna save that step, but I'm just gonna tell you about it. It is something that can be done. It's a finishing step and it can be done. Well, you should probably do it. I'll probably do it. But anyway, it's literally at this top part. You're gonna do a nice edge stitch up here to keep that down. So I am actually gonna do that right now. I'm gonna stitch that down. All right, there we go. So there you go. You can't see it, but there is a nice edge stitch in there. So we're going to push this to the side, and we are actually going to move on to the sleeves. And depending on what section, which sleeve you're doing, the next section, numbers 33 all the way until 58, all go into the sleeve. And so I am skipping directly to number 53 because I am doing sleeve C. And I actually completed one of the sleeves already. So I'm pulling out piece number 21, and that is the sleeves. And then I'm going to walk through doing the second sleeve. So I completed one of the sleeves already, and then we're going to do the second sleeve. So the first step in doing the sleeves are to create a gathering at the top. So you have, I used my gathering foot. I actually did the gathering to the second sleeve as well. But you can put in 2 basting stitches and then pull them to gather at the top. And so once you complete the gathering at the top, then you are going to do right sides together in your sleeve. You're going to pin, and you will stitch along this edge of the sleeve. So I'm going to just pin those, pin that together. All right. Again, we're doing, here's my 8363 is what we're doing. And we are now working on the sleeves to the bodice. The last part of the bodice before we move on to the skirt. I know people will be so excited about that. Okay, so 5/8 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch, we're stitching together the sleeve. We've already done the gathered section at the top. Okay, then once you have stitched this portion together, then you are going to iron out your seam allowance. You're going to iron it flat. And then you're going to turn up 1 1/4 inch. You're going to turn up the edge 1 1/4 inch, and then you're going to turn it under 1/4 of an inch. So I have my little measuring, which I did use earlier, to gauge 1 1/4 inch, which I think I've done a little bit more. There we go. So I'll measure, and then I'll iron this middle piece. There we go. Now I just turn it on the other side just to check. This is how much steam this iron has. There's so much condensation after you iron. And then I'm going to turn it under 1/4 of an inch. And then I will press that. I'll turn it on the right side. And then I'll create a top stitch. And actually, you know what? It's easier to create Hey, Julian, welcome back. It's easier to create the top stitch in terms of making sure it's all even all the way around if you keep it on the wrong side, because then you can actually use the edge of this hem. You can use the edge of it to gauge, make sure it's even all the way around. So I am going to do that right now. And just creating that top stitch to the hem, to the sleeve. There we go. And I'm just going to press it. And I'm going to turn it on the right side. And now it's time to put the sleeves in the bodice. Perfect. So now I have both of my sleeves done. Just going to press this one more time. Okay. And now here we go. We have our finished or almost finished bodice. We're going to put the sleeves in. And now with right sides together. So I'm going to turn this on the wrong side. So wrong side facing out. And then I'm going to take my sleeve, and you want to match up the sleeve. So you, on your sleeve, you will have one side of the sleeve will have an area that has 2 notches, and one will have an area that has 1. The 2 notches is the back of the sleeve, and the 1 notch is the front of the sleeve. And that's how you know you have the right sides. So you're going to keep your sleeves on the right side as you insert them, because that's going to allow the right side of the bodice to be matched up with the right side of the sleeve. But you also want to make sure that you have that you have the right sleeve going into the right arm. And so you can do that by making sure that you match up the notches. So you should have the 1 notch should line up with the 1 notch, and the 1 notch on the bodice should line up with the 1 notch on the sleeve. And the 2 notches should not line up with the 2 notches on the sleeve. I can't find my notch, but it's here somewhere. I just saw it. All right, there we go. All right, so I just make sure I have my 1 and 2 notches on the right side, so I know I have the right sleeve. And I'll start with a pin there, but then I really want to make sure that my seams are lined up. So I will line up the seam of the bodice with the seam of the sleeve. Just match those centers up and pin. Then I'm going to pin all the way around. Hi, Dynamic Amethyst. Welcome. We are sewing from Atlanta. Okay. Welcome, Atlanta. We are sewing 8361, this dress, and we are finishing up. We are putting the sleeves in the bodice, finishing that up before we move to the skirt. We might end up doing the bottom part of this. I might end up recording it offline. We'll see. But we are doing all right. Let me just see if it's gonna look. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. All right, so I've just lined those up. I pinned it all the way around, and I'm gonna actually pin the other side as well. Again, you are keeping you have your bodice turned wrong side out. You're keeping your sleeve on the right side, and you are inserting that sleeve into the bodice, making sure that you line up those notches. So you should have the back of the sleeve should be lined up with the back of the bodice, and you'll know that because there's two notches on the back of the bodice sleeve part, and there's two notches on the back of the sleeve, and that also lets you know that you have the right sleeve lined up for the right arm. And then I like to start, even though I'll take a pen again just to make sure I have the right sleeve and the right arm, I like to start by lining up the seams underneath the arm first. So I'll line that up. And then I will work my way around. Again, also making sure that I'm matching up my notches too. But that seam is what's, really important. So I'm just working my way around, lining it up. You also, if you have, because we do gathering at the top, if you may need to release some of your gathering to make sure that that your sleeve fits the way that you don't have too much extra, or if you don't have enough sleeve because you have too many gathers, you can release them again a little bit so that you have enough. Mine is lining up perfectly, so I'm happy about that. So I am just putting one more pin in, and then I'm gonna stitch around. All right. So I am again doing 5/8, and I'm gonna go in and start stitching. And this is a regular stitch. It's not a basting stitch. So you're gonna just work your way around. Making sure that everything is laying flat. You don't have any bunching underneath. And I am just, again, making sure I don't have any bunching underneath. There we go, one sleeve done. And now I'm going to go right to the other sleeve. Again, 5/8 of an inch around. Making sure that everything is laying flat, no bunching. And here we go. And just stitching in that sleeve. There we go. Okay. The sleeves are in. And it's looking great. So we have finished the bodice. And the last part is the skirt. So I'm going to put this on the dress form so you can see what this looks like. Because we won't be touching this again until the skirt is finished. Here we go. All right. So this is the front, and this is the back. Front and back, front and back. Okay, so we have the part that we have left is the skirt. And so what I'm going to do is, I know Instagram is about to time out. I'm going to record the skirt separately. So I will finish recording. I will record the skirt and how to attach the top to the skirt. I will record those pieces separately, and I will upload them to YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So we will finish part 2 separately. I will not do it on live just because it took us about 4 hours to finish the top, or about 3 hours and 45 minutes to finish the top. So I'm going to finish the skirt and how to attach the skirt. So stay tuned for part 2 of completing the dress 8361. We did finish the top completely. We finished the bodice. We finished the collar, the lapel. We finished the front band along with the sleeves of UC. Also the elastic in the back. All of those were parts that we finished in part 1. So part 2 will contain the skirt as well as how to finish the skirt. I anticipate it's probably another hour to finish that part. So I'm going to finish that offline, and then I will be uploading that video to both Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Yes. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you for hanging in there while we finish the top. It looks amazing. And I will be adding the skirt and uploading that video shortly. So thank you all and have a great evening.